Morning everyone. My name is Lalita Kumari. I am from Faculty of Education, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Flora Charles and the members of the organizing committee for organizing this virtual conference. Let me present a brief introduction and the research findings on distributed leadership practices. Distributed leadership has been the subject of considerable education research and discourse in the recent years. A study of distributed leadership particularly timely, as a number of international studies have highlighted the need for leadership to be distributed throughout the school organization with a view to improving student outcomes. It is believed that by developing teachers' leadership capacity, teachers can influence each other to explore new and improved pedagogical practices. What is distributed leadership? Moving on to background, distributed leadership is one form of leadership that is prominent in the current educational discourse. So I would like to explain distributed leadership considered the following concepts: teamwork, collaborative working environment, professional learning communities, we call PLCs shortly, organizational learning, and teacher leaders throughout the school. Moving on to the introduction. The research in the UK and the USA shows that leadership is one of the most important factors in improving educational achievements of students and making a school success. Also, in the UK research supports the importance of leadership, where leadership is weak, it is more difficult for teachers to do a good job. We know if leadership is an effective one, staff and pupils are better motivated because communication are clear and frequent, and everyone feels they are pulling together and working towards shared goals. However, we all know that leadership is a very broad and complex concept. Distributed leadership is one form of leadership that is prominent in the current educational discourse. Therefore, my study explores the idea of distributed leadership as a means of enhancing teaching and learning. The main purpose of distributed leadership: to provide more opportunities for teachers to undertake leadership responsibilities pertaining to teaching and learning, to improve collaborative working culture within the school, and also to improve professional learning communities and organizational learning. Therefore, principals as school leaders can use distributed leadership practices as one of the most important leadership styles in building effective leadership skills of teachers and professional development of teachers, and thereby enhance educational achievements of. Moving on to important areas to be considered when devolving leadership responsibilities. We can identify following areas. Building a dialogue between leader and follower in order to express their views and share their experiences freely. And also, it is important to make sure about confidence and trust to fulfill the assigned leadership task. It should be focused on providing necessary feedback for teacher leaders in order for them to overcome challenges and weaknesses when playing assigned leadership roles. Finally, success of teacher leaders, depends on the mutual dialogue and the trust that the principal and the teacher leader built up. Background and focus of the current study. In Sri Lanka, there are different categories of government schools called 1AB, 1C, Type 2 and Type 3. The educational achievements of students in Type 1C and Type 2 schools are low when compared to the Type 1AB schools. Today, research into the field of school leadership in the country has focused more on other types of leadership practices rather than distributed leadership practices in the school. Therefore, my study focused on distributed leadership practices and its impact on teaching and learning in Type 1C and Type 2 schools in Sri Lanka. Moving on to the objectives. Basically, 3 objectives were built up. First one is to identify how principals and teachers understand the concept of distributed leadership. The second objective was to find out how distributed leadership practices enhance teaching and learning. And the third one was to explore the challenges principals and teachers face in practicing distributed leadership roles in their schools. The methodology adopted in this study was mixed method. So mixed methodology was selected as the best suit methodology, as I thought the mixed method gives an opportunity for a researcher to triangulate data. Therefore, mixed methodology was adopted as the research methods. When considering the sample, for this study, altogether 200 teachers from Type 1C and Type 2 schools, government schools were selected randomly. Altogether, 8 government schools and 8 principals were participated in this study. When it comes to the findings, there are some fascinating findings in regard to distributed leadership practices in Type 1C and Type 2 schools in Sri Lanka. Findings revealed that all the principals and a significant number of teachers in Type 1C and Type 2 schools understood the concept of distributed leadership to a satisfactory level. More than 85% of teachers from the entire teacher sample responded that distributed leadership practices is significant in enhancing the quality of teaching, learning and students' educational achievement. Also, another significant number of teachers from the entire teacher sample responded that distributed leadership practices support to improve a collaborative working culture in their schools. All the principals and the majority of teachers recognize distributed leadership as one of the most important leadership practices in developing teacher leaders and thus develop secondary level school leaders within the school. So this is a very important research findings where principals can motivate teacher leaders in order for them to build up a secondary level leaders within the school. Different types of leadership responsibilities were assigned among the members of the staff in both types of schools to a satisfactory level. However, the most important thing is that the findings of this study revealed that assigned leadership responsibilities were not fulfilled to a satisfactory level due to the challenge of not having a supportive teamwork culture, particularly in Type 2 schools. It was further revealed from this study that the delegated leadership responsibilities have linked with teaching learning process in order to improve educational achievement of students. Also, the findings further supported by the interviews held with randomly selected teachers in Type 1C and Type 2 schools where there was a view. We were given leadership responsibilities with regard to classroom supervision and we were asked to provide necessary feedback report within a month's time. So in this manner, the focus group discussion 2 supported to the findings of the survey. In terms of the responses obtained to the question of how satisfied are you about collaborative work practices in your school, more than 78% of teachers from the entire sample responded not satisfied, need considerable attention. Compared to this percentage of teachers who had responded satisfied were less amounting 15%. Also, challenges such as negative attitudes of qualified, experienced teachers towards undertaking leadership responsibilities were revealed. Not having a satisfactory collaborative working environment in these particular types of schools. Teachers don't feel trust and supported by their colleagues. Structural and cultural barriers operate within the schools, demotivate teachers to undertake leadership responsibilities. So these are the challenges both teachers and school principals face when they play distributed leadership roles in their schools. Moving on to the conclusion. Based on the results of this study, it is evident that the principals working in both type schools delegated leadership responsibilities among teachers to a satisfactory level. The concept of teacher leadership motivated in both type schools. A significant number of teachers are not satisfied about the existing collaborative working environment in their schools. Also, it can be concluded that teachers don't feel trusted and supported by their colleagues. Therefore, what we can suggest, I can suggest necessary measures need to be taken in order to enhance trust and collaborative work practices among teachers in these particular types of schools in Sri Lanka if we really want to improve students' educational achievement. And thank you so much for listening to my presentation.